I don't know if you call it a preview. It's really not a preview. Spring football recap in the SEC.
Hey,
Your own Southern Sports Gumbo. We're going to go over a few teams tonight. I think we're going to talk a little bit about Bama, Tennessee, maybe Ole Miss, and who else are we talking about? Florida. That was the other
yes,
team.
yes, sir.
So we're going to talk about those four teams tonight. Just what they went through with spring, some highlights coming out of it, young players that are going to make a difference, and then kind of where the team stands. So I'm going to start with Alabama, who just had their 8A game this past Saturday and has two more practices after that. The main thing everybody wants to talk about in Alabama is the quarterback battle between Keelan Russell and Austin Mack. Both are high potential guys. Russell was a 5-star in last year's class. Alabama fans are really high on him, and he had a really good 8A game. And out of the two, he played 2/3 of the game in the 8A game over Austin Mack. They said Mack was a little dinged up, but Russell played really well. You read about Mack having good days too. I think they'll probably take this into the fall and say there's still competition, but I think it's looking like Russell will probably be the guy that wins out in this position battle. Higher upside. Both of them have good arms and can throw the ball. Russell's going to be able to do more on the ground, running the football, especially if there's pressure. And I think that leads me to their offensive line, which I'll come back to, because I do think they're going to need a quarterback that can move in the pocket. Their line struggled last year um, with pass protection and running the football, and I don't see it different this year. I said I'll come back to. Let me just get into their offensive line.
Yeah, I was going to say, the one thing about the two quarterbacks is Russell in the spring game, he tore it up and Mac didn't. I think that's where this you're starting to see the separation. If you read the player comments, their teammates, they're Keelan Russell fans. I'll be really surprised if Russell's not starting, barring injury or something like that.
They're, they were not strong offensively on the line last year. They struggled running the ball. We're in the 100s running the football, and I look at their offensive line. I don't know. They lost some talent. It may not have fit what DeBoer wants. It may have been a line that would have been better used differently. But Jackson Lawrence, their left tackle this year. William Sanders projected to start at guard. Mel Waldrop started in the 8A game. Racing Delgado, a transfer from a smaller school, is going to supposed to be their center. Michael Carroll, who played a lot last year, is their right guard. Javen James, Mississippi State transfer, but potentially the right tackle. And not a lot of depth on this line either. Ty Haywood, who was highly recruited, never played at Michigan, and the things you read about him in the spring, he's not done well in the spring. Ethan Fields, Ole Miss transfer, not necessarily highly regarded. He's from Louisiana. Tyler Miller, freshman, he's in there too deep. So I'd look at this offensive line, and they can say it's better. They did change offensive line coaches, so maybe scheme is going to help. But I'm not gonna. You're not gonna convince me this offensive line's better till we see it in a game. I don't think the talent as a whole is better. Again, a team, a group can form a bond. They can play together and they can execute well. So, not saying it's going to happen, but you're going to have to prove it to me. And again, with the offensive line questions, I definitely think you better go with a mobile quarterback. And to me, that's Russell. You look at their running game. If the offensive line cannot get movement against good defensive lines, their running backs, Daniel Hill has lost a little weight. You hear good things about him coming out of spring. Kevin Riley had a really good spring for him. Deere was banged up some, and Crowell, their freshman, who they're really high on, probably their highest ceiling back, was having some good practices early, and then he got banged up. I still think he, will play a lot for them this year. I don't know if Crowell doesn't emerge that they have one running back in that group that's explosive. They didn't last year. Hill showed signs, and he does a good job of catching the ball out of the backfield. He can be a consistent back, but between Hill, Riley, Deere, those guys are not guys that are going to be first, second team All SEC running backs like Saban had in all those years. So you take a questionable offensive line again, with running backs that are good, solid backs. I just don't see that running game emerging unless Crowell comes in and just has an outstanding freshman year, which is possible. He's very talented. Wide receiver wise, solid group. Ryan Coleman Williams, as a freshman, was great. Latsier Brooks, very good slot receiver. I think he will be again this year. Going back to Williams, he had a sophomore slump, dropping a lot of passes. I guess if they add Coleman in with his name, maybe now he's supposed to catch more balls. Now I say that kind of in jest because he did do a good job this spring. Didn't drop any balls in the 8A game, and they said he was much better. Big loss for him in the 8A game was Noah Rogers getting hurt, and supposedly that injury is going to keep him out for the first of the season. I don't know if that brings him back in the second month, but they do play some tough games early. So I think that is a big loss. He was playing very well for him. In the SEC, if you have three potential good receivers, you really can be tough on a defense. Obviously, Williams is as good as anybody, and Brooks is very good. But I think you have a much better chance defending them with two than you had if Noah Rogers was in there. Derek Meadows had, I think 5 catches in the spring game and showed some signs. But again, I'm going to have
Morgan also had a good game too, the freshman kid.
Yes. Now, Cedarius Morgan, I like him a lot. He's got a high upside.
He's yeah. I was going to say I don't think that if he's ready to go come fall, I don't think that the loss of Rogers is going to be as big when you've got somebody as talented as Morgan waiting in the wings. So I don't. It hurts from a depth perspective, certainly, but I don't think talent wise it's a big loss. Morgan's a dude.
If Morgan is the dude that they want him to be, they need him to be that. Yeah. Again, when you look at their offense and a suspect running game, if they don't have an outstanding passing game to kind of lead into that running game, I just see that this offense could struggle. No, when I say that, they're going to score in the 20s. I'm not saying they're going to be inept. DeBoer does a good job with offense, and they've got talent at quarterback, and they do have talent at receiver. So I'm not saying that they're going to be inept, but I think they'll have some inconsistent periods of games, without Morgan or Rogers coming back early. Josh Ford, transfer tight end from Oklahoma State, had also a good spring. So again, you can add him to their passing game. Overall, I think offensively they can create some big plays through the passing game. You're going to have to convince me that offensive line is going to be good, and you're going to have to convince me that they're going to be able to run the ball. To me, I think they're going to be very similar to last year. They're going to be very dependent upon their ability to pass the ball and hit big plays through the passing game. And I just think that with young quarterbacks, you're going to have games that you're going to be really good, but you're going to have games where they're going to make mistakes and throw 2 interceptions, maybe 3 interceptions. And I think, based on that, last year I looked at Alabama as a really high floor team. This year I don't think that floor is the same. Last year I thought the floor was 9-3. This year I think the floor could be 8-4. Maybe even just a hair worse, because I think you will lose a game based on one of those quarterbacks having a bad game and a game that you don't think you're going to lose. When I flip it over to the defensive side, secondary may be the best in college football. Safety play is really good with Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, and then Mincy's. They moved him from corner to the safety spot too. He's in there for depth. And then another guy that I really like, Ike Taylor's son, Ivan Taylor. I would have really wished that he would have ended up at LSU. We really didn't go after him that hard. He was a Notre Dame commit, and then he flipped Alabama. But we all know what a great athlete Ike Taylor was. Played for the Steelers, was from Louisiana, Lafayette, in that area. Was a track guy and ended up playing football his senior year, and then ran like a 4.2 and again had a great pro career. So his son's going to be a good athlete. But rattling there about that. Going back to the cornerbacks, they got Xavier Brown and Dion Lee, two really good cornerbacks there too. So, like I said, as good a secondary as you're going to have. Excuse me.
Blush.
And then you flip from there to their linebacker group. So Yanzi Pierre really showed that he can rush the passer and get after the passer. Again, I think that's their strength with him rushing the passer in their secondary. From here, I think things get really questionable on their defense. Middle linebacker, they don't have a lot of experience there. Caleb Woodson, the transfer, had a good spring, so they're going to count on him, and he's going to have to be good in the middle because after that, there's just not a lot of experience. You got QB Reese, Luke Metz, and Caden Jones. And again, I just don't see any of those guys as guys that will be a dominant linebacker. Reese might be. They say, he's talented. He might be, but again, he's young, and it's hard to play in the league, without experience. You got to be talented and experienced to be a good linebacker in this league.
I think Caleb Woodson he'll provide some leadership. Being an older guy, I don't know that talent wise he's going to lead the room, but being an older guy who's been there and done that is certainly a big thing presence wise for Alabama and depth wise as well.
And then you get into their defensive line, and so they lost James Smith to Ohio State. I think that's a huge loss. Terrence Green and Kendrick Bingley Jones are in the middle there at nose. They brag about Devin Tompkins, the transfer from USC, and I think he's a solid player. And then London Simmons on the other side. I look at this group, and again, I pair this like with the linebacker room. Defensive line and middle linebacker, I think, is going to be average for Alabama this year. Not what they've been in the past, and I just don't see this being the strength for this team. I think it's going to be down to the secondary, and they're going to depend on Pierre to get after the passer. I think they've got to get better in that middle. So again, I look at this Alabama team, and I really think they're an 8-4 type team this year because in the SEC. I don't know how you can be questionable at the line of scrimmage on both sides and be better than that. That being said, a lot of talent on this team. Again, there's probably 3 guys in that secondary that'll be first round picks. There's probably 6 guys in that secondary that'll play in the NFL. You got good receivers, that are going to play in the NFL. Quarterbacks that are talented. So they got a lot of talent. They're going to win a game or two. They shouldn't. But the SEC is tough. But that, to me, is kind of the highlights of where they're going to be. I think they take a small step back. Again, you're playing inexperienced quarterbacks, and the line of scrimmage is not your strength. That's just not a strong way to be in the SEC. Your thoughts on Alabama?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that I think they do take a step back this year. They're just not the they're just not the Bama old. They don't scare you getting off the bus like they used to. And let's just face it, DeBoer is not Saban on the recruiting trail. That being said, I expect them to be very competitive. I can still see them. They can. I think they can win 10 games. Maybe. I see them more 8-ish, 9-ish, but I think a lot of it is going to depend on how the quarterback battle turns out, and if he's able to come in and and get after it. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, defensively, I think that I think they'll take a step back. They lost a lot on defense, especially in the secondary. But I like Alabama to be. I'm going to call them 8-4 this year, Kev. I'm going to call them 8-4.
Yeah, that's kind of where I go. And again, I just don't like the trend that they're in. You look at how they played last year in the games that they lost at Florida State. They lost that Georgia game in the SEC championship, that Indiana game in the playoffs. All those games, the line of scrimmage was dominant the other way. And, James Allen, whether he's right or he's wrong, goes to Ohio State, talks immediately about how practices are more physical there. They're more demanding. You've heard that internally on the Alabama side too.
Yeah.
I just think there's something to that. I think the style is different. I think DeBoer is a good coach. I'm just not sure his style is going to match with the SEC.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
all right, if we go from there, who do you want to roll with?
Well, we'll talk about the Tennessee Volunteers today. Josh Heupel up on Rocky Top, got a quarterback battle going on up there. Redshirt freshman George McIntyre. Uh, Insiders are quietly saying they think he's the leader in the clubhouse right now. It is a great battle. He's battling with true freshman 5-star Faison Brandon, as well as transfer Ryan Staub, who played for Colorado in prime time last season. McIntyre and Brandon have been neck and neck a lot of the spring. I think that McIntyre's consistency in being there earlier in the having a season under his belt already is a big advantage for him there. As far as their offense goes, receivers Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews are going to start for them. Ethan Davis has had a good spring at tight end, and they're really liking him as a blocker and a pass catcher. Tulane running back transfer Javen Gordon had a really good spring. Wasn't they didn't expect as much out of him as they've gotten, I think. So they're very excited about what he's doing up there. One of the biggest acquisitions for Tennessee this season wasn't a player at all. It was actually a defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, who Tennessee got from Penn State. And they didn't only get a great defensive coordinator when they got that trade. They picked up some players from Penn State who can ball out on defense. Their defense this season is going to be led by Chaz Coleman, who's an edge guy. High potential pass rusher. He's probably a future first round pick. Heck of a ball player. Penn State was not happy that he went with Knowles. But that's the way this college football works nowadays. Also coming in was Xavier Gilliam, a defensive tackle, who should be a huge part of the rotation for Tennessee this season. Had a really good spring. Quay Moss from Kansas State. He's a plug and play guy at Star. Big addition to the secondary, versatile. They can use him in a few different spots back there. So that's a huge acquisition for Tennessee there. Injury wise, defensive tackle Davian Hobbs is going to miss the remainder of spring because he hurt his foot, but he's expected to be back for full fall camp. Arian Carter, the linebacker, still dinged up from last season, but they let him recover through the spring. He should be fine come fall. And wide receiver Mike Matthews, easy for me to say, has been banged up, so he was limited in practice as well. They had a good spring game. The defense dominated the spring game, and that says a lot for Knowles and what he's been able to do. I think mostly in spring defense is ahead of the offense usually, especially in the situation at Tennessee where you've got two freshmen battling for the starting job. On Tennessee's offensive line, they brought in transfer from LSU Ori Williams, who right now looks to be probably starting at right tackle for him. So that was a huge acquisition for Tennessee there. Defensive wise, like we talked about, Chaz Coleman, just an absolute beast. TJ Metcalf, who they brought in from Michigan at safety, another big pickup for Tennessee. David Sanders, who everybody's everything, all world offensive tackle coming out of high school. They said that he's actually put on some good weight and he looks like a totally different person this spring. That's a scary thought for the rest of the SEC because that kid's a football player. Carter Gooden and TJ White at linebacker have also showed out during the spring. Knowles has been happy with their performance. They expect to both be part of the rotation, come fall. I like Josh Heupel. I like him as a coach. I like his offense. I like he likes to throw it. He likes to get it downfield. He likes to push. But the one thing that Tennessee has done silently, while Heupel is known as a passing guy, is Tennessee's had a very effective running game with Josh Heupel up there, and that's something that is going to win Tennessee more games than they lose off of that because when you're able to run the ball effectively, it sets up the pass, and that's exactly what he likes to do. So when you can do both, it just helps you that much more. And like I said earlier, the biggest key to this season, in my opinion, was Tennessee getting Jim Knowles from Penn State. He's going to do a fantastic job there. It's really it legitimizes Tennessee in my eyes in the SEC. Not that they weren't legitimate before, but Knowles is that good a defensive coordinator. He's a great recruiter as well, and he also develops the talent. So, looking forward to see how that works out this fall. I'm Tennessee is kind of a I haven't looked at their schedule. I'll put Tennessee 9, 9, maybe 10. I got to check out their schedule before I give a hard number. Kev, you got any thoughts on Tennessee?
Yeah, I like Tennessee to win between 8 and 10, kind of like what you're saying. Look, they you mentioned their running game. They run the spread, but they spread the field really to create mismatches to run the football. When you go, your wide receivers are far sideline. You really can only put 6 people in the box, and that's what really helps them. One of the things I really like with Tennessee is their offensive line. You mentioned those guys. I think they're going to have a good offensive line. And Heupel always coaches his quarterbacks up. Everybody said last year their quarterbacks would struggle, and they didn't. Um, may not have been the best, but they played well enough to win a lot of games.
They were
I think
effective.
you'll have the same thing this year, and I agree with you. Knowles is going to be a big difference. I think Tennessee will be able to run the ball well. They've got good talent at wide receiver. Defensively, they're going to be better. I like Tennessee to win 9 with a floor of 8 and a ceiling of 10. I like Tennessee to be a little better than last year. I think they've got a lot of good players. It's a big advantage when they play Bama at home. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the games we talked about them. I think that's one of the games that Tennessee can get this year
Yeah.
that they didn't last year. LSU, Tennessee in November up there is going to be a really interesting game. One that
That could be one that with ramifications there. That late in the season, that could be one where
certainly
loser
could be.
goes home. So they have A&M on the road. They've got LSU, Bama, Kentucky, and Texas at home. So they got a decent draw with having some tough games at home. They do go to Georgia Tech, and Arkansas, and South Carolina, and Kentucky. So really, outside of Texas A&M, Tennessee has a pretty favorable road schedule for the SEC. I'm with you. I think 10 is very possible. I expect 9, and I can't see him losing more than 4 unless there's injuries or something funky happens.
Interesting thing to watch would be Chaz Coleman.
Yeah.
He went kind of missing there, and they're paying him, I think, $3 million or something like that.
Yeah, it was a strange story, and I didn't bring it up specifically because I've heard a few different things, and I don't want to say something that's I don't want to blast a kid or somebody else, with something that's not true. So I just I'll wait and when the facts come out, they'll come out. But it's been an odd situation. But that kid's a ball player. Make no mistake
He
about
is
it.
really
That
talented.
kid is a ball player. And Knowles, like I said, Knowles bringing those kids that he brought with him, he knew what he was doing. He brought in
Yep.
dudes. He didn't bring in scrubs from Penn State. He brought in their best.
And I give Knowles a much better chance to be able to bring Coleman back into the group and move that forward than the Boo Carter stuff that they went through last year.
Well, they have a relationship, and Coleman came with him. So I like I said, the few different things I've heard are they're opposites. They both can't be true. So I won't say either of them because it's just
Right.
nothing to talk about, just a rumor or a couple of rumors. But I do like Tennessee. I like Heupel. I like their favorable schedule. Tennessee's a possible playoff team this year, Kev.
So let's run into Florida real quick. From that, let's finish up with Florida, and then we will call it an evening. So new coach John Summerall, known for his toughness, been a very good coach at Tulane. and before that in the Sun Belt. Um, he's going to bring toughness, and you hear it out of their camp how much better they are as far as toughness, their defense, the things that he's emphasized, how he's getting to execute. You break that back a little bit. Look, Florida has a lot of talent on this team. They did last year too. They just weren't coached up well enough across that team. Jaden Ball is as good a running back as there is in the league. Wide receiver, they have depth with Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, and Eric Singleton coming over from Auburn. Tight end, they've got good players with Harpering. Their weakness is their offensive line. That's going to have to get coached up, and I'm not going to say that it will. You jump over to on the defensive side. Defensive front could be really strong. It was a strength last year. You got Cam James and L.J. McCray at defensive end. Both have a lot of playing time. Joseph Mabachu at nose tackle and Jamari Lyons. Brendan Brett at defensive tackle. Jeremiah McLeod. Those guys have all played. The reason I'm mentioning too is there's a lot in this two deep. On the edge, Jaden Woods played. KJ Ford would not be somebody that played a lot, but 7 of their 8 defensive linemen have all played a lot. Linebacker Miles Graham has played quite a bit. Then they have Jaden Robinson. Aaron Childs has also played quite a bit at linebacker. So a lot of depth there. Secondary, Cormani McLean. Yes, the Cormani McLean that played for different schools and went to Colorado. But he's found a home in Florida, listed as a potential starter. Bryce Thornton, who's been there with him at safety. DJ Coleman stepping in this year, replacing and getting a start at safety. Kanye Clark. So again, if I were going to say a question on their defense, would be a little bit in their secondary, just on experience, not on talent. That's the front 7 has got a lot of experience. And again, going back on the offensive side, if they can get some play out of their line, they've got a lot of talented, skilled players. Brings me to the last thing I'll talk about from Florida, and that's their battle at quarterback. You have Aaron Philo, who a lot of people are high on. He's a Atlanta kid, was a really good high school player, has the ability to pass the ball, and knows the offense. Came with the offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech, and most people thought, that he would probably win this position. Got a good arm, big arm, so he can make the throws. And then on the other side of this quarterback battle, you have Trammell Jones, who is a redshirt sophomore coming into this year, and who's had a really good spring. Going into the spring, Philo was the expected guy. Trammell Jones has made this a quarterback competition, though. I think if it started today just because of the familiarity with the offense, Philo would probably be the guy. But I think by the fall, with the momentum that Jones had coming out of spring, that he very likely could be the guy. He's a little more athletic, more dual threat than Philo is. Again, Philo's familiar with the system and what the offensive coordinator likes, and he's familiar with him too. So, look, it's hard to predict what Florida's going to do as their season goes, and 8 wins is certainly going to get them excited. And I would probably put their ceiling at 8. But I do think this is going to be a more competitive team. I don't think this is going to be the Florida of the last 2 years with Summerall and that kind of stuff. I think they're going to be much more competitive, more sound. They'll execute better. They will be a tougher out than what they have been. That being said, I still think they're probably ceiling at 8-4, and I kind of like them to finish at 8-4. What's your thoughts on Florida?
I'll go ahead and give you my season prediction first because I was just glancing at their schedule. I like a ceiling of 8-4, but I think they're 7-5. Could be 6-6. They got a decent draw schedule wise. Their one really tough road game is Texas. They go to Auburn as well, but they have also got Kentucky on the road, and then they've got Florida State out of conference, and at Mizzou. Mizzou's another tough road game. So, yeah, that 7-5, and I still think if they go 7-5, that's a heck of a job by Summerall. So that if they go 7-5, Florida fans should be really excited about that because that was a big overhaul. Miles Graham, kid from here in Atlanta, He was able to participate in the last few practices as a full go. So that's a big thing there. Great linebacker. Florida had a lot of injuries in the spring, and Summerall was very careful with how he dealt with them. He didn't seem to want to push it too hard. Obviously, you don't want to lose a kid in the spring that ends up being bounced for the season. Transfer wise, there are transfers who have came in. Micah Mays has been fantastic at wide receiver. They didn't expect him to be as good as he's shown. Very happy about that pickup. Kev, you talked about Philo transfer from Georgia Tech down there. I believe that he will start as well. And I think once he gets in there and gets a chance, I think he'll hold on to the job. I think he's a good quarterback. So we'll see if he's able to hold on to it. Evan Pryor, another running back they brought in from Cincinnati. Just big play threat guy. They're loving his pop when he hits the hole. You talked about Cormani McClain and stuff, and Kanye Clark, who they brought in from UCLA, has been fantastic at star. So I think that they did a great job of picking up talent in the portal that fits what they want to do. So that's a big thing, because people just sometimes you get talent in the portal, but if it's not talent that fits what you do, then you see it all the time. Great athlete without a position. Same thing with you can have a good football player, but if he's in the wrong scheme, then he just can't showcase what he does, and he won't be as effective for you as he would be for somebody else. So I think the Florida did a really good job of that, and I look forward to them being a little tougher out this year than they were last year.
You look at their schedule, Texas and Georgia, those are games I wouldn't predict they would win, even though
Right.
they've played Georgia tough recently. The games that I think would be really interesting, it starts at the end of September. They play Ole Miss at home. Look, the Swamp is a tough place to play, and that could be a really tough game for Ole Miss. I think that's coming after the LSU game too.
I think yeah, it's there's a 3 week stretch where they go to Auburn, they got Ole Miss at home, and then they go to Mizzou.
That's right.
And
That's
that's
right.
that they could drop all three of those.
They could, but
I
they could
don't.
win 2 out of 3.
I,
I
I,
think they probably win 1 out of those 3.
I was gonna say possibly two, probably one. Could lose all three though. And then they got South Carolina at home, and then go to Texas and Georgia, and then Oklahoma. So yeah, I feel much better about 7-5, and I'm maybe even thinking more 6-6 now.
I
We'll
think
see
they
how.
might get that Oklahoma game in November too, provided they're not, just beat up with injuries.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. I before last year I would have said the same thing, but I had to apologize to Venables because I thought he was a bum. But he did a heck of a job with Oklahoma last year. Got him in the playoff, and went on an incredible run at the end of the year to get there. So I think Oklahoma's another game. They lose. It's in the swamp, so the swamp at night is always a tough place to play. But I think Oklahoma's a better team. And then Kentucky and Vandy are more. Vandy without Pavia. What's the next guy going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to step up and and get some stuff going? He if it's the kid that's freshman, he was the number one quarterback in the country. So
Jared Curtis.
yeah, so who Vandy took from Georgia. So it's uh, there's opportunity there. It's going to be a lot of fun. You got any more
Last
thoughts?
last thing we say about Florida here, Florida's had a lot of coaches between Urban Meyer, McElvain, Muschamp, um, Napier. Where do you rate Summerall out of these guys?
I would guess that he will probably be a. I don't think he'll be as good as your boy. Who's at UNLV now?
Um, uh, oh yeah, he was
It's
at
the one
Mississippi
coach you didn't
State.
mention. What'd
Yeah,
you
he's the
say?
one I didn't mention. He's at Mississippi State. He did a
Yeah,
good job.
Dan
Great
Mullen.
offense
Dan Mullen.
coach,
Dan
Dan
Mullen.
Mullen.
I don't think he'll be as good as Dan. I thought Dan Mullen did a decent job there. I don't think he'll be as good as
He
Mullen. I
did.
think he's going to be, more of a McElwain without humping sharks naked. I think he's going to fall in there. And if he can recruit, his ability to recruit is going to be really important too. We'll find out really quick, if he's got the chops. Yeah, I can't judge him on his first year coming in just because he hit the ground running, and so in the next year or two we'll see how he's able to recruit and then develop, and go from there.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I think Summerall will be the best coach that they've had since Urban Meyer. I look at what he's done. He's had success at two places, been a head coach. I think he does have the it factor. Some guys were wanting to leave, like Jaden Ball, and he talked him into staying. I think he has a good staff. I think that means a lot. The coach has the ability to hire a good staff. I just think he's shown an ability to organize the staff and coach good, sound football. So we'll see. I could be wrong. If he hits 8-4 this year, I think he's on his way to establishing Florida.
Yeah, if he goes 8-4, he's got a lot of attaboys coming. So.
All right. Well, that's our first three teams that we're going to cover on spring. We'll be back in a couple of days, and we'll take three more. Be looking for those. Again, we'll have our baseball recaps. We're going to talk a lot of other things, too, that are going on with football, NCAA stuff, that kind of stuff. But I appreciate everybody. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. If you don't like us, make a comment, do anything. Sweets, how do you want to close it?
I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll see y'all on Sunday.
Good stuff.